There's very few people in America better positioned than Arthur Herman. Arthur is at the Hudson Institute. He is the author of many fine books. My favorite is To Rule the Waves. I've read it 3 times, but Freedom's Forge is the one I've got to read next. I've never read it. It's about how America became the arsenal of democracy, and he joins me this morning. Good morning, Arthur. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How's everybody there?
Great. Healthy, fine, wonderful. I hope you are the same. Have you found an uptick in interest in Freedom's Forge, as I assume should be happening?
Yeah, well, you know what? The interest started at the White House, as a matter of fact. And I know that a lot of the plans that were made with regard to how to ramp up production for PPEs and ventilators and respirators, a lot of it was inspired by the model which I had laid out in Freedom's Forge, as a matter of fact, which is that reminding people that the World War II production miracle that got us armed and defeated the Axis was really driven by the private sector initiative and entrepreneurship, with the federal government and Washington basically playing the role of traffic cop, keeping everybody directed towards they need to be. And I know that for the White House and for the effort to get our production ramped up in those healthcare industry, that one of the things that led them to reject the kind of top-down model that Democrats were pushing for was the inspiration of the book. So I'm very pleased, and my goal over the next month is to get Hugh Hewitt now to read the book as well.
Oh, Hugh Hewitt is as we speak. If people can see, if they're watching, I am downloading it onto my audiobooks because I do an hour to 2 hours and sometimes 3 hours outdoors by myself every morning after the show, Arthur. I just finished The Splendid and the Vile. Before that, Dominion. Before that, a couple of books on China. And I've got Churchill's History of the English-Speaking People. But I think this is so timely. I'm downloading it as we speak. You just made $22 off of me because I just got to know how we did it. And so what's the essence of how we did it in World War II and how we'll do it now?
Well, the essence of it was that you harness the productive power and initiative that comes out of the habits of businesses working in the private sector, the most productive companies, and you get them working towards a particular target with a particular timeline. And in this case, it is to get us geared up to not only supply the healthcare goods that we need to defeat COVID-19, including now, of course, test kits. I think you're going to see a shift towards more and more private industry helping out with the production of testing kits, but also at the same time that we'll be able to produce enough to create really a kind of arsenal of democracy, World War II style, for other countries which are just going to be going through the crisis that China has unleashed on all of us. And it's very ironic, Hugh, to watch companies like Ford and General Motors and other companies and aerospace companies that were so important to our World War II effort have been shifting and moving their assembly lines now to help us out with this COVID-19 crisis. History has come full circle, and I've been very pleased to watch this happen. What I'm hoping is that now, as this crisis begins to ebb, that we'll take a hard, clear, and realistic look at the way in which our overdependence on China for manufactured goods, including healthcare goods, has really got to come to an end. It's not sustainable.
It's not. It's dangerous. And by the way, they are flooding the market with lousy antibody tests.
Totally.
They don't work.
They don't work, and I think what we can see is that when the spokesman from the foreign ministry in Beijing threatened to cut off American pharmaceutical goods if we didn't behave, it's a sign of just how dangerous that dependency on China can really be for us.
Yeah, this is not decoupling. This is a hemorrhage. It doesn't mean war. It just means clarity. And I think we're in sort of the early 30s vis-a-vis China. And luckily, we got Churchill. We got a lot of Churchills around, like Cotton and other people.
I'm going to give a lot of credit to Peter Navarro, who is a fan of Freedom's Forge, and we've had discussions. And I've met with his staff to talk about the lessons from Freedom's Forge. And I think Peter Navarro's done a fantastic job with regard to our production effort, our ramp-up over the last couple of months. And I also have full confidence that Navarro is going to be just the person to lead us forward in what the next step is going to be, and that is what sectors of our economy do we need to decouple from China as a matter of national security and as a matter of economic security?
Now, here's the irony, Arthur. I've known Peter for 30 years. I opposed him when he ran for San Diego mayor, San Diego county supervisor, San Diego congressman. He's a liberal Democrat, a protectionist. And I oppose all the stuff he's done outside of China, but I've had him on the show because he's right about China. So if you get the one big thing right, if you're a hedgehog, I don't care if you're wrong on all the other stuff. If you get the one big thing right, and he's right about China.
He is. And, and he was considered a wild man about China and about our overdependence and what China's plans were for us, which were not for our interest. He was considered a wild man up to about 6 months ago. And now I think COVID-19 has made it clear that he was a prophet with honor, and that those of us, and I've been working on this, for 5 years, pushing for the idea that our dependence on China for key goods and important goods, including pharmaceuticals, was going to come back to bite us, that we had to find ways in which to stop China's bid for global hegemony, starting with their effort to gain an economic grip over our economy. And I think we're going to see now, finally, we're going to see the mood on Capitol Hill, not as well as the mood in the White House, is going to be one which is going to take a hard look at what China has done and where we need to go to stop it.
Now, Arthur Herman, I'm going to come back to Freedom's Forge in a second, but Phase 4 is coming of the legislative effort. Part A of Phase 4 is what do we fund independent of state and local governments. Phase 2 is how do we do state and local governments, and that's a separate question of federalism and structural federalism for lawyers more than it is for historians. Phase 1, what do we fund? I think it is in big three categories: pharmaceutical repatriation, which you've talked about, right, nuclear power regeneration. We have to reclaim leadership in that industry because it is the future and it also addresses climate change. And then the defense industrial base, like the award of the frigate today or tomorrow, and maybe, I believe, forward appropriation of the Columbia class, forward appropriation of Virginia class. I don't think we can do too much for the defense industrial base right now. Your thoughts?
No, I don't. I think you're right. And I think it's not just the defense industrial base right now, but it's also the defense industrial base in the future. The kind of high-tech, advanced technologies that are going to make our country safe and secure, and our allies. And we cannot allow the supply chain for those advanced technologies, whether you're talking about areas like robotics, whether you're talking about AI, and you're talking about quantum technology, which I work on a lot right now at Hudson and in Washington. You cannot allow those technologies to be in the hands of China. And it's going to be, I think, very important for us to look ahead and realize that the high-tech sector, from semiconductors, supercomputers, quantum computers, that this is one in which America has a natural lead. We're the natural leaders in innovation and these developments. We need to extend and deepen that lead so that China doesn't overtake us in those critical areas.
Well, by the next time you come back, I will have listened to Freedom's Forge. It's almost done downloading. I love being in a studio with a lot of bandwidth. But I want to ask the key question.
Sure.
If the Democrats win, they will attempt a 10-to-1 government to private sector ratio of decision makers. I believe the bottom line in Freedom Forge is you get a 1-to-10 government to private sector decision makers. Am I roughly right?
I think you are, and I think that's a very good way to put what the difference will be for a Democrat win in 2020 versus a Trump reelection. And I'm putting this in stark terms. The fact is that what I have seen on the Hill in development here as this COVID-19 crisis unfolds is a lot of worry on the part of the Democrats that they need to soft pedal the anti-China message, and that this is, Trump's xenophobia, and that the COVID-19 lockdown isn't lasting long enough, that the federal government needs to impose more diktats and strictures. And I think the other thing you've seen, Hugh, is that some mayors and governors here have, including in Michigan and California, have seen the lockdown on COVID-19 as a prelude to the lockdown and the rules that they're going to impose for a Green New Deal. That the effort to try and make Americans toe the line on climate change is going to be the next phase that comes in a Democrat reelection.
Oh, it's uniform misery for everyone if we go that way. Arthur, I got to close, though, with a question. I mentioned that To Rule the Waves is my favorite popular history of the British Navy. And I believe you're uniquely situated to answer this. We are a naval power. I believe we're Athens. I think we just have to go all in on the Navy, but I don't think that even the Pentagon believes that yet. Are you making progress with your conversations with Navarro and everybody else that we've just got to get our Navy back up to where it needs to be?
We need a Navy which is going to take full advantage of our geopolitical positioning, not just in terms of what the United States is as a maritime power, which has really been the basis of our power since the War of 1812, but also our allies as well, that we have extending across Asia and through the edges of the Eurasian landmass. We have the ability to contain both Russia and China and their allies like Iran. But it's going to depend upon strong commitment to maritime power. Hugh, I think you've got the grand strategist vision exactly right.
Well, that's because I just read Arthur Herman a lot. Arthur, I'm going to be listening to Freedom's Forge this morning. I have just bought it. I hope everyone goes out there and does the same. Come back in a couple of weeks when I'm done with it, and we'll talk about how we got from Pearl Harbor from a standing army of 160,000 to 8 million men in the field, fully equipped, fully supplied. Well, not always fully supplied, but hell of a lot of supplies in Europe, in Japan. How did we do that? Arthur Herman knows. We need to do it again. Thank you.